Mr. Speaker, that none of my fellow Republican colleagues want to come down and join in with my colleague from Texas to talk about how great this bill is to fight inflation. But in any event, I'd be embarrassed to be here defending this measure as well. But in any event, I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from the Washington Post entitled, "What Should the White House Do to Combat Inflation?" Experts weighed in with 12 ideas. Mr. Speaker, maybe my friends on the other side of the aisle should take a look at this article. While I don't agree with all the ideas in here, at least this article has actual ideas to bring down inflation, instead of the Republican plan to write a book report on inflation to Congress. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, all I can say is that the American people deserve better. They deserve more than a book report. They deserve action that will make a positive difference in their lives. And I encourage my colleagues, to vote no on this rule and vote no on the underlying bill. I'm also, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from The Hill entitled, "5 Actions Biden Has Taken in Response to High Gas Prices."
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, President Biden has taken steps to lower prices at the pump for the American people. Since prices began to rise, President Biden released 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, removed restrictions on the sale of higher ethanol fuel, and called out oil companies for taking advantage of their customers, communities, and their country. He also continues to promote a transition to renewable energy. So President Biden has acted to try to lower prices. My Republican colleagues cannot do the same. I guess I'll say finally, Mr. Speaker, I mean, we have some serious challenges in this country. Inflation is one of them. And the idea that after all the buildup, after all the talk of we have a comprehensive plan to fight inflation, this is it? This is it? This is an embarrassment, Mr. Speaker. There are things that we can do together to lower costs for the American people. A book report doesn't lower the costs for anybody. And by the way, under this bill, the book report that is required for executive orders, it's not even required to be published. They could write a book report and no one gets to see it. I mean, this is not what the American people had hoped for. They had hoped we would come together and kind of rally around ideas that would actually make a difference in their lives. So yeah, you can pass this and say, we just passed this big plan to fight inflation, and then hope that nobody realizes that you did nothing. And I will say, Mr. Speaker, this is a missed opportunity. This was a time, quite frankly, where committees of jurisdiction should have come together, done hearings, heard ideas, Republican ideas and Democratic ideas, and taken the best of them and brought them to the floor. Ideas that would have made a difference in people's lives. This does nothing. This does nothing. And so, I guess you can tweet out that you voted for a book report on inflation and hope that your constituents will think that somehow you accomplished something big. But I would say that my constituents certainly would not be satisfied with this. Mr. Speaker, all this talk about bringing down the deficit, and do I need to remind everybody that the first Republican bill passed this year when we came into the majority, that their first bill added $114 billion to the national debt. I mean, come on. I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from The Hill entitled, "CBO, GOP's IRS bill would add $114 billion to the deficit."
Without objection.
So anyway, look, one is I urge my colleagues to vote no on the previous question. And again, I want to repeat that. The reason why you want to vote no on because the previous question basically would allow us to bring up an amendment that basically says it is not the intention of this House to do anything to cut Social Security or Medicare. All my friends got all upset, notwithstanding their rhetoric that they want to go after Social Security and Medicare. They were all upset that they were being called out on their words. Well, here's an opportunity to put that to rest. It's very, very simple. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're not going to cut Medicare. So if you vote no on the previous question, we can do that. And I urge my colleagues to vote no on this rule and no on the underlying bill. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlemen,